This video is about World of Tanks' Swedish tech tree for tank destroyers. They start at they start at tier 4 all the way up to tier 10. And you will notice at tier 8, 9, and 10, the vehicles are very similar. The UDIS and the STRV, and the lower tier vehicles have also some similarities. So general overview, the lower tier vehicles are very easy to play. They're very maneuverable. They move around the map quickly and easily. The higher tier vehicles, high learning curve, very good penetration for tier 8. Very good for gun depression, etc. They can be really fun to play, especially if you're defending and the enemy is advancing. If you have to move around a lot, it can be a little bit more difficult. And another feature of the higher tier tank destroyers is they usually go reverse at the same speed that they go forward because they might have two drivers. So we're going to start out with this lower tier. Oh, I don't have it. With this lower tier vehicle. These are very simple vehicles. The penetration on this is not that great. It is a derp gun in that case. 107 for tier 4 is actually pretty good. Usually with tank destroyers, you're going to have higher penetration than other vehicles. This is another example of a vehicle that is easy to play, very maneuverable. It's going to have higher penetration than the other vehicles of the same tier. This one's very easy to play. I've played all these tanks. Very easy to drive around. Again, it has good penetration. This is a tier 6 vehicle, and it has penetration that would be the lowest penetration for tier 8. So you're going to do really well. Now we start to see a different style where you have the gun mounted in the rear. These are still easy to play, easy to move around, but it's when you get to tier 8 that it gets really interesting. They have a special mode with some of these vehicles. It's called the siege mode, where you press X and the vehicle will use its hydraulics to lean so you can get really good gun depression. You can get onto a terrain area and you can make it so that the shells will just bounce right off. They are vulnerable to HE rounds, and there is a learning curve. You have to wait 2 seconds to switch between the driving mode and the sniping mode. They aim extremely quickly, probably the quickest aim time in the game. They drive around very easily, forward or reverse. See, this one has a crew of 3. It only has one driver. Very, very good slope. I'm going to move on to the next vehicle. When you get to tier 9, one of the things that happens with some of the vehicles is that the gun for tier 9 might be the same gun for tier 10. So what happens is the tier 9 and the tier 10 vehicle might be very similar, and the penetration won't differ very much. And when you get to tier 10, all the vehicles, all the tank destroyers from all different countries are going to have similar penetration. So what happens is tier 8, you're going to have really good penetration, and in tier 9, you're probably going to have really good penetration. But you lose that strong advantage when you get to tier 10. There is a premium vehicle, which is right here. This is the STRV S1. It's quite a popular vehicle. You will find it in games like Frontline, not that often, but people will. I use it when I'm defending. And the reason why is because this can penetrate everything in tier 8 with regular rounds. Same with the UDIS, which is not in my garage, but the UDIS is the same situation. You can penetrate anything with regular rounds, including the Mutant. And when you use the gold rounds, you get really high penetration. So we're going to take a quick look at how the vehicles compare. This is a Tier 8 on the left here. You can see that the penetration is 288, which is going to be probably the highest for Tier 8. For Tier 9, it's 308, and for Tier 10, it's 308. So basically, the Tier 8 has penetration that could work in Tier 10, but the Tier 9 and the Tier 10 have Tier 10 penetration, is basically what it is. These are the highest penetrating guns, the FV215B 183 and the FV 4005 at 310, and the Swedish are 308. So it's basically the same penetration, which puts it at the highest for all tank destroyers in the game, for Tier 9 and for Tier 10. Every vehicle has something called the balance. Usually if you have high penetration, you're going to do less damage. For example, you see the E3 does 750 damage, but the STRV does 390 damage. It's one of the little trade-offs that they make, and the same is going to be true with the reload time. You're going to get to fire more often if you do less damage per shot. In my case, with the vehicle I have configured, it takes me 6.7 seconds to load that gun. Now you see for gun depression, minus 14, which is the best in Tier 8, and it's also the best out of Tier 10. So you've got really good gun depression. You can get a really nice slope in the game, and you can bounce a lot of shells without trying. The aim time, 2.9, 2.9, 2.9. It, on paper, appears higher than a lot of these vehicles. But it does actually aim very quickly. You'll get a very small reticle. When a vehicle is far away, you'll be able to aim very accurately at any part of the vehicle. So if you want to aim at the cupola from far away, the STRV and the UDAS, these are the tanks to do it with. You're going to get a really small aiming reticle and very high penetration. You're going to do really well penetrating with this. Now you can see that the armor is very small, 20, 20, 20, 40, 30, 30. It's not a brawling vehicle. It's not a heavily armored vehicle. As long as the enemy is in front of you, you should be fine. If the enemy gets to the side or behind you, you're very, very vulnerable. Top speed for the UDAS is 70. That's really good. In fact, it's higher than all the tanks I put in the comparison, which is all the Tier 10 tanks and the STRVs. There's another value, which is traverse speed. You see how it says 41? These vehicles, they spin around really fast. The STRV, the Tier 9, is the highest traverse of all the vehicles that I picked. Something like a Jagdpanzer E100, very slow. So if someone is circling around you, you'll be able to keep up with them with this vehicle because it spins around so fast. Then you have your camouflage. Some of mine might not have, might not be set up, but you can see in the case of the Tier 9, the camo value is really good. It's one of the best, if not the best, for all the tank destroyers. And the reason why is because it has such a low profile. The view range in this case, I have mine configured fairly good. This is a vehicle you could play with binocs. It depends on your playing style, and the reason why you might want to play with binocs is because it extends your view range, which means that when you are sitting and sniping, you will not only be able to spot your enemy, but you'll be able to spot for your team from a little bit of a distance, which means you can earn spotting damage by playing these vehicles. You can earn extra spotting damage when you have binocs, especially if it's a small map like Ensk. There's other maps, obviously, that are a little bit small. Mines is an example of another one, where you can do spotting for your team if the map is small, and that will allow you to earn extra EXP or make it easier for you to get your gun marks. The other thing that's good about some of the equipment, such as the camo net and the binocs, is that they do not reset when you traverse your vehicle. When you rotate your vehicle, the binocs stay on and the camo net stays on. So you can flip around real fast. It literally moves around very quickly, not slow at all. STRV is a premium vehicle. It is very popular. I played quite a few games in it. I do enjoy playing it. Again, high learning curve. So if you get it, don't expect to go out in your first game and have an amazing game, because you have to decide, switching between the siege mode, how are you going to do it? If you watch in the game with other people playing, you're going to see that people get amazing angles. If you get on a little bit of a slope, you're going to get an amazing angle. Unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to be in any position you want in the game, but you can have really good games with this vehicle. If you like a challenging vehicle, this is definitely one of the challenging vehicles. And if you want high penetration gold rounds, definitely go with the STRV. We're going to see what my tier 9 does. It says 350. Not the highest, but it's around the highest. The highest is 420, which is way higher than everybody else, which is a Jagdpanzer E100. So these are great vehicles. We're going to look at the tech tree. We're going to talk a little bit about your crew. You get it from tier 4, which means that you can develop your crew as a tank destroyer all the way down with about 3 crew members. If you look over here, you can see that uses 4 crew members. This one uses 4. That uses 4. That uses 4. That's down to 3, down to 3, and down to 3. With the medium tanks at tier 8, you're going to have to add a crew member in order to get that in. So you're going to have a good set of crew members once you get up to tier 10 with this vehicle. Okay, so that's a little bit about the STRV. I'm going to talk about how it compares to other countries. Just about every country has really good tank destroyers. With France, you got to be up at tier 10. But with the other countries, pretty much any tier, you're either going to get high damage or high penetration. With Russia, you get a choice of 2 because there are 2 lines. One that is front mounted actually gets up to 3 lines over here. With the Americans and the Germans and the British, you have good armor. With the Russians, you have a choice for good armor. With the French, you don't. You get mobility and high penetration with the French. And with the Chinese, it's more about just an overall, it doesn't have the necessarily strongest armor or anything. It's just kind of a jack of all trades tank destroyer. Okay, if you have any questions or comments, please post below.